So one of the other things that I'm very proud about that I think I achieved during my career was to focus on receptor characterization and classification, what Sir James Black called taxonomy, receptor taxonomy. I think it's absolutely critical, and clearly biologists long ago realized how critical it was. It even goes back to Linnaeus when he came up with a classification for plants and animals, and as somebody who's now studying ornithology, I'm aware how important it is that what you call a bird, it can be very confusing if you go from country to country, and I think that exactly the same in the laboratories at one stage. So, for instance, we cut our teeth in pharmacology on receptor classification with 5-HT receptors, because when we started working on sumatriptan, we only knew of 2 5-HT receptors. At the time they were called M and D, and later we reclassified them into 5-HT3 and 5-HT2. But as it turned out, there are at least 14 receptors or thereabouts for 5-HT, and one of the problems when we were working on the sumatriptan project was that my original hypothesis kept changing simply because we kept finding more and more receptor types, and it was quite confusing as things went on, simply because different people were giving these new receptors different names. Fortunately, the ones we were interested in relation to sumatriptan, we discovered ourselves, so we didn't have to worry about other people's names. But talking about it in the scientific fraternity worldwide was quite a problem at times, and that's why I was very keen to get people together and agree on some proper nomenclature that would stand the test of time. And that's really what happened through the workings of IUFAR and the receptor nomenclature group that I and others set up. But in relation to the 5-HT receptor classification, the other thing that's is very pleasing is that that despite the problems we had as new receptors grew up in the project, we managed to keep our team together, and the enthusiasm that, okay, Pat's original hypothesis was wrong, but we'll get there in the end, and we actually did. And I'm very proud that David Jack always said that this was a detective story of quite some significance, and that he'd never seen anything quite like it. So I was pleased with that. But in terms of nomenclature, we did go on and do a lot of work in other areas. So a group of us in pharmacology at Ware also worked very thoroughly and dedicatedly on trying to work out prostaglandin receptor classification, and we did publish a nomenclature very early on before any of the receptors were identified by molecular means, and it turned out that we got them all right from based on function, which again shows that structure is important but function is important too, and you can classify things just as readily through that means. And subsequently many other receptor classification projects were set up under the auspices of IUFA, and you know, I was in there at the beginning of all of that wave of activity, which has turned out to be incredibly important, and I think will continue to go on now, because it's imperative that we have proper nomenclature, proper names, and proper agreement on terms of what differentiates one receptor from the other.